Good morning, everyone. This is SBS 9, where we talk to deceased Army officers about being on the front line, such as John J. Perishin, Marlon Green, George C. Marshall Jr. and Douglas MacArthur. But today we're talking to the great, the beautiful George Courtney Benson. Thank you for joining us today, George. I apologise for not being as dressed as you are. So I know we don't have all the time in the world, so let's get right into it. What inspired you to... I was fascinated with the Army before I even joined it. I documented and drew many different aspects of the front line. When I joined the Army, it was made out to be an adventure like no other, for young, strong men. So, as many others I did, I fell into the trap and enlisted. So, I know a lot of people... At what year did you enlist? I enlisted in the First World War in 1914 to 1918 and the Second World War from 1939 to 1945. I was 28 when I first enlisted and I was 53 when I joined the camouflage unit in the Second World War. So I know a lot of people think that your photos are very intriguing and beautiful, but I've never really seen them. So what type of photos did you document and draw? So, give me a quick... Photos listed from one of my most famous pieces, which was of an army officer in the trenches, to the beautiful landscapes of which I documented and drew while I was in action. I did this to take my mind off the gruesome and horrible reality of the war. So, give me a quick brief on what the conditions were like in the trenches. Were they like? I've heard that they were horrible. The conditions were horrible. They were extremely poor. The trenches were extremely smelly from stool just lying around, and there were many different sicknesses going around, such as trench foot or chloria and hepatitis A and B. And that's on top of the constant threat of enemy attack. So I understand that your rank in the Army was gunner. Could you explain and elaborate on what that is and what you have to do? So basically a gunner belongs to the British Royal Regiment of Artillery. The Royal Artillery's job is to supply gunpowder across all disciplines. Army gunners are trained to specialise in battle helicopters, tank infantry and sometimes even the Navy. I understand that you enlisted for the Second World War, but were turned down. Could you explain to me why and how this occurred? I was turned down because of my age. That was a handicap and risk to the health and safety of me and my peers, but I joined the camouflage unit, which then enabled me to still have heavily influenced in the Army. So, as you've just stated, you joined the camouflage unit. Could you elaborate on what exactly that is? Because I'm really just confused. So basically they enlisted a bunch of artists and zoologists to come up with methods and techniques for camouflage to then have an advantage on the enemy. We put coloured netting on the soldiers' helmets so that when they hide this in the scrub, they are less likely to see or match the colour of tanks surrounding them to hide from any aircrafts. We were often mocked for our methods as the military didn't see the use in the method, but a lot of soldiers were grateful for what we did for them and their survival. So I understand that after the war, you continued as an artist. What exactly did you paint? And who were the paintings for, and what were they? The University of Western Australia commissioned me to paint the ceilings of Winthrop Hall. I then carried out further mural commissions in Perth while always working as a critic cartoonist for the Western Australian newspaper. So, I hope you don't mind me asking, but as a lot of people know, after the war, you can be very anxious and have bad nightmares. Did you enjoy life after the war, and did you break down or have any mental issues? Yes, that's a fine question. And no, I didn't have a bad life after the war. I did enjoy life a great deal after the war because I continued my passion as an artist for the remainder of my lifetime and enjoyed working on projects and doing big pieces like the Winthrop Hall or being a critic for the Western newspaper, as I stated before. So yes, my life was very pleasant after the war. So last question for the night. Where did you train when you enlisted for the army? I was stationed out of Melbourne at a base camp called Puckapunyal Military Area. Puckapunyal, which was the Army's main centre for combat and doctrinal development, accommodating the School of Armour and the School of Artillery. I was artillery. For the Second World War. I was trained at Irwin Barracks, Karrakatta, which was the Army HQ for the 13th Brigade and Army Reserve, and coordination for training. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, George, for your time, as I understand that you don't have much time. Very much appreciated. This is your host, Gus Stevenson, reporting from here at the studio on SBS 9, where we report and talk to deceased Army legends. Thank you, and good night.